The woman is alone at home, carefully dressed. Suddenly there is a movement outside the window. The woman panicked to get up and open the door to see. A scruffy and unkempt man stood at the doorway. Thinking he might be the blind date her colleague had set her up with. The woman, Miranda, let the man into the room. Out of politeness, Miranda went back into the room to change her clothes. But the man began to look around. The man's lustful eyes traveled over Miranda's body, and he couldn't help but blurt out,
"You look hot."
Then, the man took out a toothpick, put it in his mouth, and started rummaging through Miranda's belongings. His actions made Miranda uncomfortable, so she found an excuse to ask him to leave. However, the man showed impatience and stated he didn't want to leave, then headed towards the door. Realizing the danger, Miranda warned him that she would call the police if he didn't leave. But the man remained unfazed, and in a terrifying act, he grabbed Miranda by the hair and covered her mouth. Panicked, Miranda tried to run towards the door, but she was no match for the man's strength. The man pressed Miranda on the table and said in a perverted tone that he had liked Miranda for a long time. In a desperate attempt to escape his grasp, Miranda bit the man's hand, but he dragged her back and held her down on the table. A few hours later, another man appeared at Miranda's door with flowers in his hand. Kevin knocked on the door, but there was no answer. When Kevin pushed open the half-hidden door and entered the room, he was shocked by what he saw and called the police. Kevin originally came here for a blind date with Miranda, but he didn't expect to see this scene. Miranda was rushed to the hospital, covered in bruises on her face and body. In the face of the doctor's examination, Miranda appeared completely numb. It seemed that no matter which part of her body was being examined, she displayed no sensation whatsoever. She stared blankly at the ceiling, her heart feeling lifeless beneath her pulsing veins. The police came to gather evidence and questioned Miranda about the perpetrator. Horrified, she tried to remember and suddenly remembered having seen this man at a restaurant where he was the chef. The police quickly arrested the man who was attempting to flee, and he confessed to all his crimes. However, Miranda's nightmare was far from over. The trauma left her neurotic, and her father did his best to clean up the house to make it seem as if nothing had happened. But Miranda wanted to sell the house and move to a new environment. Disappointed by the real estate agent's news that the house would be hard to sell due to the incident, Miranda became agitated. The realtor could only suggest that Miranda plant a rose garden. The next second, Miranda appeared in the garden with a shovel and dug a small hole, burying the rose seeds with their packaging into the hole. The father could only smile helplessly at his daughter. But the bigger blow was yet to come when Miranda realized that her hands were shaking uncontrollably and she couldn't do basic tasks. Then, the director brought bad news. During her recovery days, Miranda missed out on training and her dream of becoming a surgical nurse was dashed. In order to help Miranda's recovery, a colleague prepared a surgical toy for her, but the beautiful packaging stung Miranda's heart, and the original Miranda was very good at making crafts. Miranda reacted by tearing the packaging in a rough manner and looking displeased at the toy before her. Nonetheless, when she returned home, she practiced with great care. Despite being actions that a 6-year-old child could easily accomplish, Miranda consistently failed. After several attempts, Miranda lost control of her emotions and smashed the toy in front of her into pieces. That night, she slept next to the broken toy. While glancing at the toy's instruction manual, Miranda seemed to have an idea and immediately grabbed a pen to write a letter. Surprisingly, this letter was addressed to the man who violated her. After sending the letter, Miranda's demeanor transformed. It was as if she had unburdened herself in that moment. She returned to her previous amiable self, treating people with kindness. When she got home, Miranda couldn't wait to see if she'd received a reply, but her letter was returned with an envelope that said unclaimed. Unfazed, Miranda ignored the rejection, opened the letter, and repackaged it before putting it back into the mailbox. In the following days, Miranda continued to write to the man who violated her, while also renovating her house as if expecting something. Finally, a month later, Miranda received no longer the letter she had been returned, but a reply from the man. Miranda looked at the envelope with a sense of relief. The next day, Miranda sat down in front of the man, her expression unfathomable. She then picked up the phone receiver and stared directly at the man, as if trying to etch his appearance into her memory. William thought Miranda had come to confront him and avoided her gaze. Miranda stares for a long time before asking William how the food is. William was taken aback by the unexpected question, but he saw a hint of affection in Miranda's eyes. Shyly, he replied that it was not bad. Glancing at the clock on the wall, which marked around the time he had violated her, William's gaze shifted. Despite the situation, Miranda remained composed and even smiled, seemingly untouched by the incident. On her way back home, Miranda's face lit up with joy. She felt elated and unexpectedly fed her father's dog with her own hands. The father also noticed Miranda's sudden closeness to the dog, but didn't realize the problem. The second time Miranda appeared in front of William, it was not an unsolicited visit. She had received a letter from him, expressing a desire to meet again. William seemed to want to bond with Miranda, and he tried to apologize to her. Miranda, however, said in gentle tone that they could talk about something else. William opened his heart to Miranda and they chatted about family matters. After the visit, Miranda returned home to feed her father's dog. Since then, Miranda has been repeating these two things. Visiting William and feeding the dog, Miranda looked forward to every meeting with William with eager anticipation, and her attire became increasingly stylish each time they met. However, this time, when Miranda picked up the receiver, William didn't appear. The prison guard didn't inform her of the reason either. When Miranda returned home, she was full of disappointment and immediately sent a card to William. William, on the other hand, looks exhausted. When William appeared in front of Miranda again, Miranda couldn't help but lose her temper. Miranda asks William why he didn't come to see her last time. William explains that he was in trouble last time and some of the guys knew he wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. Even in the face of provocation, William wouldn't fight back, so he would often target him on purpose. William lifted his shirt, revealing a long scar on his waist. Surprisingly, Miranda couldn't help but smile. Her plan was working flawlessly. Everything William had done was because of her. In their subsequent meetings, they discussed childhood memories, parents, and personal experiences. Miranda's mother had passed away from asthma when she was 9 years old, while William's mother had left him when he was 12. William expressed some resentment, suggesting that if his mother had been around, he might not have ended up the way he did. Miranda comforted him. As the final visit approached, William appeared nervous. Miranda asked him what happened, and William, containing his excitement, told her that he had been granted parole. Miranda's face flashes with panic. William panicked and said that he could understand Miranda not wanting to see him outside, but he also promised that he wouldn't do anything like that again. Instead of answering, Miranda brought up her own question.
Do you think you've served your time?
William admitted he couldn't undo what he had done but was determined to make amends. However, Miranda's expression was complex, and her thoughts were inscrutable. At the end of the visit, Miranda received a call from his father, whose faithful dog had died for no apparent reason. She rushed home to console her father. Strangely, when they buried the dog, Miranda seemed unusually focused and devoid of sorrow. Shortly after, while at work, Miranda received a bouquet of flowers. When her colleagues inquired, she quickly explained her father had sent them. Subsequently, she received a call from William. William had been released and was staying in a small motel. Miranda blames William for sending the flowers to her workplace. Apparently, Miranda didn't want anyone to find out she was in contact with William. She wanted their interaction to remain limited to letter exchanges. But William is instantly agitated when he hears this, and it's not the answer he wants to hear. That evening, as Miranda returned home from work, someone called her name. Miranda took a step back in surprise. William was standing in front of the house looking around. Miranda quickly puts on a show of composure and then calms down. Everything is going according to her plan. Miranda had visited the man who violated her numerous times, all with the intention of manipulating William into developing feelings for her. Sure enough, upon his release, William's first action was to find Miranda. He even helped her repair her house. Miranda looked at William outside the door and couldn't help but put her hand on a fruit knife. But then, she let out a long breath and shook her head. William worked harder and harder, and even paid for the renovation materials out of his own pocket. But the bill came up 5 cents short. At that point, William got a menacing look on his face and bit down on his toothpick and stuck his hand in the owner's change box. William then looked at the boss with a bad smile on his face. The boss could only sigh helplessly. William picked up the materials and left. Miranda's father, who had seen all this, immediately approached Miranda and angrily asked her why the bad guy was here. Miranda tries to deny that William was ever here, but her father pulls out a piece of wood that William left behind at the hardware shop, and the piece matches Miranda's ceiling. Miranda had to admit it, but that made the father even more angry. He couldn't understand why his daughter would want this demon around her. It was unbelievable. And with a serious face, Miranda told her father that she was trying to move on and that she would make that demon make amends. Unable to understand, the father leaves in anger. The next day, William arrived at Miranda's home once more. By this time, he was brimming with hope and even had plans to find stable employment. Miranda handed William a glass of lemon water. After taking a sip, he felt something was off, but he drank it all down due to Miranda's warm enthusiasm. Soon, William felt weak and his stomach churned. Miranda invited him inside to rest. When William woke up, he found that he was lying on the bed, and in front of him, Miranda was wearing a delicate makeup. She gently placed a warm towel on his forehead. William asked if Miranda, being a nurse, knew what was wrong with him. Of course, Miranda knew. Then her face changed.
You're a rapist, William. That's what's wrong with you.
William's confusion grew as he attempted to sit up, but found himself immobilized. Miranda had bound him. With a serious expression, Miranda questioned whether William really believed she had forgotten about his monstrous actions. It is only then that William realizes that this is a conspiracy. Miranda leisurely mocks William for not being as strong as her father's dog. Gasping for breath, William blurted out that Miranda was a lunatic, but Miranda continued to approach him with the liquid in hand. William panics and says that he saw Miranda save the life of a man who was nearly asphyxiated trying to appeal to Miranda's conscience as a nurse. But Miranda just smiles contemptuously. She's just enjoying the applause and then pushes the trolley towards William. William loses consciousness in shock, and when he wakes up again, he feels thirsty. Miranda is playing the game with great interest, and when she sees William waking up, she pours him a glass of water. William's quilt is already oozing blood and he doesn't feel a thing. William looked at the water in Miranda's hand and rejected it. He didn't know if it was safe. William was relieved when he saw Miranda take a sip of water. Suddenly, the doorbell rang and William panicked and shouted for help. Miranda quickly returned and put a cotton cloth into William's mouth, and then put 2 layers of adhesive tape on it. William lay there, sobbing in despair. Luckily, the man outside the door was just delivering a delivery and didn't interact with Miranda too much, which saved his life. Miranda returned downstairs and removed tape from William's mouth. William begged Miranda to leave him alone. Then he felt a pain in his wrist. Miranda asked William to hold her hand. William's hand was already detached from his body and he wailed in pain. Miranda realizes that her hands are no longer trembling and picks up the mirror to show William how charming he is now. William kept begging Miranda for mercy. He believed that Miranda would not kill him. Miranda, suddenly expressionless, says that the accident of her mother's death was all of her making and how she could spare the demons that had violated her. It is then that William feels truly desperate and wonders who is the evil one, him or the woman in front of him. Miranda lifts the covers from William's head and tells him to look up at himself. With a wail, William realizes he is no longer a man and can only scream for help. Miranda's cold voice was in his ear.
I win.